Welcome to the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU athletics. Before our trip begins, let's set a few ground rules. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, hit the like button. Third, please be sure to tell someone else about this show. Now that we've got these things out of the way, it's time for our journey to begin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another great edition of The Ride. We are here on week number 4 already, and you guys know how I do every week. You guys make sure you hit the like button, and for those that are watching this that have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel, man. We're keeping this thing real cool and fun and all that good stuff. And also for everybody that's watching, make sure that you participate in the comments. We're going to have us a good time here on week number 4. And so with week number 4, I know SWAC fans, I know this week there are 8 schools that are on bye week, but we've got 4 of the teams that have really good games. We're going to talk about those. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about the teams, even though they're on bye week, we're still going to get mentions on there. And also, as always, your questions are always welcome. All your comments are always welcome. So, hey, let's get right to the action, shall we? We will start off right here. MEAC. All right. We got South Carolina State coming in at 2-1, fresh off of a 55-41 win over Bethune-Cookman last week at home. They take their talents down to Tampa, Florida to take on a South Florida Bull team who was humbled by the U last Saturday. They were ranked last week, and somehow they lose a game and to the 4th ranked team in America, and they're not ranked anymore. Go figure that. Anyhow, this game is at high noon down there in Tampa. They're playing early because as you can see in the background, that's Raymond James Stadium there in Tampa. They share the stadium with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are at home for their home opener on Sunday. And so this game will be played very early, high noon, 11 a.m. Central. For those in the Central, you can get up early and watch it. Last time they played, 2019, 55-16 by the way of USF. All right, this game will also be seen on ESPN+. Now, these payment games, this is an opportunity for South Carolina State to establish more of their rhythm that they've already obtained. They have been doing so well on both sides of the ball ever since that first game. The first game, they moved the ball up and down the field on offense, but struggled to score, couldn't finish drives. Since then, they've been doing really, really well, much, much better in finishing drives. And also defensively, South Carolina State has been getting so much better as well. So this game right here for South Florida, they come in, they got humbled, as I said last week. Gave up a lot of points, and they didn't look anything like the team that upset Florida in the Swamp and also upset Boise State to start the season. Nevertheless, they still have a superb resume through 3 games. South Carolina State, just play a game, do your best, do what you can. Try hang around in this game, and hang around in this game. I expect them to for quite a while, but in the end, it is South Florida, and Alex Golesh has a really good team down there. Depth and all that will catch up, and I've got this a little bit closer, 35-14. What up, David Gardner? Good to see you on the show, man. 35-14 is where I'm going here with South Florida to get the win here. I don't see them completely blowing these guys out, because I think that South Florida, they've shown you that they've got guys that can compete. Ryan Stubblefield, their quarterback, one of the quarterbacks, he's been doing really, really well for these guys. I expect their momentum to keep rolling under Chennis Berry as they get ready with the last couple games here of non-conference before they start the MEAC play coming up next month. All right. MEAC fans, we got still a little while to go on non-conference play. All right. So that's that game. Now I'm going to move over to another game in the MEAC where we've got Morgan State, who comes in 0-3. And last week was, it was a rough one. They only got 4 first downs and didn't get anything done. Nothing done. Toledo took them apart, spanked them in every which way. 60-0. They get to come back home now, and they face a Central State team who's also 0-3. And this is the time, Morgan State, for you to get yourselves together. Even with all of the struggles that they've had, taking care of the ball, having untimely penalties, and just not taking care of the things that they can control. They had a chance to beat Towson at home. They let that go in the end. They had a real good chance at South Alabama in week number 1 and let that go away because of turnovers. This is a game for you, Morgan State, to get yourself healthy, because you're getting ready to take a little run now where you're playing Central State SIAC. Next week, I'll be talking about you at the Circle City Classic in Indianapolis playing Miles College, another SIAC team. Then you got sandwiched in between a game with Virginia Lynchburg for your homecoming. You play at Georgetown. So you've got 4 winnable games coming up if you're Morgan State before you get to MEAC play. So in this game at high noon, ESPN Plus, first ever meeting, Central State they're not going to really, I don't expect them to compete in this game. I expect these guys from Morgan State to get going early, 35-3. These guys, Coach Damon Wilson, these guys will get in the win column for the first time this year, right? They got to get their confidence back. And if they can't get their confidence back in these next 4 games, I don't know what will. So Morgan State, 35-3. All right. So I normally don't get my boys out the way early, but I will tonight because we've got bigger games on the schedule coming up. Lane College is our opponent this week for Alabama A&M. They come in with an 0-2 record in the SIAC. They are coached by former longtime assistant by Alabama A&M, Stanley Connor, in his first season. Alabama A&M, you guys know, watched them last week. They were impressive again in a victory at Nashville over Tennessee State. Outlasted them 23-21 in a 4-quarter game that was excellent to watch. They played 2 years ago there in Huntsville. It was 51-13 A&M. This is the last night game there in Lewis Cruz Stadium this season. All the rest of the games will be during the daytime. So this game is not expected to be close. A&M is pretty much just priming themselves for SWAC play to start next week as they hit the road next week to get it started at Bethune-Cookman. The most important thing in this game for A&M, just get everybody some time out there. Get your backups plenty of playing time, because these are guys that you're going to call on later on up the road when you get into some stickier moments. Lane, for all of their the smaller their team is, they will fight. They always will fight. But A&M, they're just too big, too strong, too deep, and we'll take care of business. I've got this one 42-14. I don't see A&M spanking them too bad in this one, because I expect them to really focus a lot on getting back up some time and focus on things like stopping these penalties and execution, all these things that Coach Sam Shade talks about. This is a week for them to really work on those things against an inferior opponent in Lane, right? And also, if you saw how Kentucky State played Grambling last week, it is important, A&M, to just come out, take care of business early, give them no confidence, and move on down the road and get ready for Bethune-Cookman. That said, 42-14 is where I'm going in that game. And now I dip back into the MEAC for an interesting situation there in Dick Price Stadium in Norfolk at 4 p.m. this coming Saturday. On ESPN Plus, you got the Sacred Heart Pioneers at 1-2 coming in to take on an equal 1-2 Norfolk State team. Last time they played was a year ago, and Sacred Heart won 10-3 in a game that they really had no business winning. And the reason why I say that is because Sacred Heart had literally one drive the entire game. Norfolk State made a living in their red zone the entire game last year. They turned the ball over 4 times in the red zone. In fact, a couple times they turned it over inside the 5-yard line. So a game that kind of last year, it epitomized the former tenure of their former head coach, Dawson Odoms. So now you fast forward and you turn the page to this year. Norfolk State 1-2. It's been uneven for them. The one win, they had to fight and claw in overtime to beat Virginia State at home. As also, there's been some talk this week about Michael Vick. He had to answer some questions about his alma mater, Virginia Tech, because those who might not know, but many people know that Virginia Tech, they fired their third-year head coach, Brent Pry, this week. And there's been reports saying that Virginia Tech alums, they really pushed Michael Vick to take this job because they wanted him to prepare himself to one day be a Virginia Tech head coach. Look, whether that's true or not, that's neither here nor there. But Michael Vick did say, whether it was coach speak or not, he did say that my focus is here at Norfolk State. And also, to his credit, man, he's only 3 games in as a head coach. So he's really just trying to find his bearings and trying to understand exactly where his footing is, where he currently resides. So back to this game. He has Otto Kuhns as the starting quarterback, and that's with good reason, because those of us that have watched him play throughout their 3 games, he's clearly been the better guy. And so with him being clearly the better guy, this is a winnable game for these guys. Sacred Heart, out of the Northeast Conference, they really shouldn't be competing with Norfolk State in this game. But something inside of me says that with the developmental phase that Norfolk State still is in, trying to understand and try and get its running game going. Last week, preseason first team, all MEAC running back, Kevon King, found the end zone for the first time this season. But it still hasn't had the continuity that they really wanted there in the run game. If they can get their running game together in this game with the passing attack that they've shown with Drayshawn Kendrick at wide receiver, they've got some tight ends involved. They've clearly shown you that they have some promise throwing the ball. But if they get the running game going in this one, I don't expect it to be as close as I expect. But I think because the fact that they're still trying to figure it out, I'm going 20-17 Norfolk State in a low-scoring, closer game. But I've got Norfolk State getting out of there with another win. And now Norfolk State, the same thing that I said about Morgan State earlier when I talked about them. You're in a pattern now where you really, really need to take care of business coming up with these games ahead. You've got a few games that, you've got Wagner next week. Here's their schedule. You've got Wagner on the road next week. That's a winnable game. Wagner is a winless team, and there will be a winless team when you play them, because this week they're playing at Central Michigan. Okay, so you'll have what will be an 0-4 Wagner at their house next week on Staten Island. Now the game against Hampton, that's looking more like a toss-up by the days now. Okay, so that can still be another winnable game for them in a rivalry. That's the Battle of the Bay. And then Wofford is another game that's winnable. So you have a chance here, Michael Vick and crew, if you can get your footing together and find your flow on offense and be opportunistic in causing turnovers on defense, you can win 4 games potentially and come into that opening game at home on your homecoming in MEAC at 5-2 and feeling really, really good about yourself. But again, it's about development, taking advantage of the moment, right? But for right now, 20-17 is where I'm going this week. All right. Now we dip our toes back into the SWAC here. Okay, so I talked a little bit about Grambling at the top of the show. And Grambling, we know, last week it was a struggle. In fact, it was a 5-quarter struggle. We know it's been talked about a lot this week about the call that they received at the end of the game. Nevertheless, they won the game, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Coach Mickey Joseph, he acknowledged as much. We didn't play our best game. But one thing that they can be encouraged of is when their backs were against the wall, Zay T-Set showed his leadership, leading them down on a game-tying drive to set themselves up to have that chance to win the game in overtime. This week is the return match against East Texas A&M. This game last year, played down there in Commerce, went to overtime. Grambling won that game in overtime, and that was a part of their good start that they had to the season when they were forcing turnovers left and right. They forced 5 turnovers in that game, and it was really crazy the fact that they forced 5 turnovers and it still went to overtime. But that was a little bit about how much struggles they had on offense last year. But so far this year, Zay T-Set looks like he looks the part so far, I'll say, right? I'll say that he looks the part so far. And so East Texas A&M, they're winless. One of those losses was a 77-3 payment game at Florida State. We get it. Grambling knows all about that. This game, it'll be on SWAC TV, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. This game right here, this is for Grambling. This is where we really need to find out who the heck Grambling is, right? Because so far, all we've seen out of them is this. They played NAIA, number 1 team in America, D2 SIAC, and now you're playing a lower tiered Southland Conference team, okay? You got the big one next week going back down there to Dallas to face Prairie View. What you need to prove in this game, Grambling, you need to show that you can defend and that you can dominate an opponent, because this is FCS on FCS. So show us, Grambling, that you can dominate an opponent in the way that you should in a game that you're favored to win, especially at home in the hole at night. But even as I say that, I still believe it's a close game. And I've got Grambling winning this game 31-28. I see this one being this close because something tells me that these guys, they haven't turned the corner. They haven't turned the corner like we think that they have yet. And also, quite maybe, they could be saving a few things in the tank for the start of the SWAC run next week. But nevertheless, if they beat these guys handily, meaning Grambling, if they beat East Texas A&M handily, then you've got something to work with going down there to Dallas next week. And oh, are they motivated to want to win down there in Dallas, because they have not been beating Prairie View lately. But that is for next week. As for this week, Grambling 31-28, and we'll see how it goes. Benny says, I got East Texas A&M 31-21. KD, what's up? Said, hey, good evening, Tiger fan. Yeah. Hey, you know what, man? I got you, man. And I'm going to have to get you up on this one, too. We got the rest of the season. We'll make it work. All right. So that's Grambling. Now we go back. Here we go back into the MEAC now. Delaware State riding high. 2 wins in a row after beating Bowie State last week. Now they're 2-1. They're going up, I should say. Up there to Loretto, Pennsylvania. DeGaulle Field is the place. St. Francis Red Flash are the opponent. 0-3. This one's at 1 p.m. on this one will be on the NEC front row. I just found that out after I made the graphic. NEC front row is where you'll find this. Last year they played. St. Francis beat them 28-17. Deshaun Jackson this week on the SWAC coaches call. The MEAC coaches call. Man, I'm confusing them both because I'm on both of them. MEAC coaches call. He talked about this game. He said, they beat us last year. He said, and the way that they beat us last year, even though he wasn't the head coach, he said it was the epitome of how they were playing and some signs of how they play this year on defense. Not wrapping up, making silly penalties. That's the only thing that he really has to say about his team that he really talks about in a downward trend. He says their defense, they need to be more consistent. They need to wrap up, need to quit missing tackles. Also, he talks about his team's discipline. You know, he said even though they won the game last week, he was not pleased by the fact that they got out to a 30-7 halftime lead, and then they were outscored 7-6 in the second half by Bowie State. Okay, so he's looking for domination. He's looking for excellence, and I love that kind of talk from him. You know, him being a first-time head coach, he looks the part, man. He looks like he's been here before. And he talked about how he's leaned on his mentors, the Andy Reeds, you know, all of these guys, the Marty Morningwigs, the guys that he played for in Philadelphia. He's leaned on these guys, and it's really been showing well. And his team has responded in a great way. Offensively, I've got no concerns about Delaware State moving forward. They got great speed. Quarterback Caden Bennett is playing his tail off. Markeith Gillis, their running back, he's a little bit banged up, but they do have some guys in reserve. All right. Delaware State, I expect them to go into St. Francis, and I expect them to take the leadership from Deshaun Jackson this week. Really be impassioned to really go out here and play a great game and really dominate. Right. But I still see it being a closer game because I see St. Francis being a winless team coming with some fight in this one. I think Delaware State's going to have to go through some adversity, going to learn some lessons, some more of it. But in the end, 31-24 is where I'm going here. And just because it's 31-24 doesn't mean that you can't learn some valuable lessons and you can't feel good about yourself, because guess what? You win this game, man, you're 3-1. This is a team that only won 2 games in the last 2 years. Okay? 2 games in the last 2 years, and they're looking to already get 3 wins the past 2-year totals in this game. Shout out to those Hornets, man. Those guys are playing great. And yeah, Benny, D-Jack has those guys playing inspired football. He does. He does. And I'm excited to see what comes as he goes forward. Yeah. So that is the first part of the picks and all the predictions this week. I need everybody to hit the like button and also make sure you subscribe as I get into the next part of the show here. We're going back to the SWAC, and this is a return match from last year. Surprising, Northwestern State Demons, 1-2. They come down to Prairie View to take on an equally 1-2 Prairie View Panther squad. You see it, Blackshear Field's the place. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central on SWAC TV. They played last September. Prairie View hung on down there in Natchitoches, 37-31. Northwestern State, as everybody who probably knows, they pulled a stunner in week 1 when they beat Alcorn State. Now, it doesn't matter how it happened. They got the win. They took advantage of the opportunities that were afforded to them. Last 2 weeks, they went and played Minnesota, and they played Cincinnati. They collected some paychecks, and they collected some beatings. So now their head coach says, we're back on equal ground, and we believe we're playing a game against a team that we're equal with, and we should beat. And Coach Tremaine Jackson talked about that this week during the SWAC coaches call and said that, well, he said that, and you know what? We're out to prove him wrong. One thing about Coach Jackson is he's dealing with some adversity right now. Now, they've lost 2 games in a row. They lost to UT Rio Grande Valley, and they also lost at Rice last week. Now, at Rice last week, they competed well. It was 38-17. It was funny because I said it was going to be 38-17, and that's what it was. They competed well, but now they've got some issues where they got to figure it out. First of all, they got to figure out who's going to be the quarterback. Is it Tevin Carter or is it Cam Peters? Also, they've got to do some things differently on offense. They got to figure out how to get their running game going. You know, you got to get Chase Dingman going. You got to get McDowell going. You got to get those guys going. Also, defensively, they got to be able to start getting the turnover machine going. This is a very talented group, but they're still figuring it out. But they don't have much time to figure it out because, as you can see with their schedule, after this week, it gets really tough. The next 3 weeks, these boys are going on a gauntlet. You're going State Fair Classic at Alcorn, then you get a bye week, and then you go to Southern. So if you're talking about making it to Atlanta and winning the SWAC West, yes, you've already got that one win in reserve. But if you're thinking about making the run and trying to get to Atlanta, you got to figure it out this week to get you some momentum headed into that 3-game run, Prairie View. And I really expect them to get the momentum going in spots. But I also think that Northwestern State is going to punch with these guys a little bit too. Northwestern State, honestly, shouldn't even be really in the vicinity with these guys. Alcorn State turned the ball over and gave them repeated opportunities. And Prairie View, you know that now. And Tony Cook said, they could be 0-3. You're dead-gum right they could be. Because that last play of the game down there in Houston against Texas Southern, it could be 0-3. So in this game, Prairie View, come on, man. Take care of your business. Don't mess around with these guys. And I don't think they will. I think they're going to take them down. I got them 34-24 in this one. Like I said, get that confidence going, guys, because these next 3 games ain't no joke. Show you again. These next 3 ain't no joke. And if you get past those 3, you get Lincoln for homecoming, and then look at the next 2. Those ain't no joke either. So you're basically looking at 5 of the next 6. That is where it's at for these guys, right? So good on you, boys. But you better take care of business this week, because you don't want to be going to Dallas at 1-3. You go to Dallas 1-3 after all of the mojo you thought you had during the offseason. Let's move on. We got a cat fight down there in Daytona Beach. This game, Edward Waters, 3-0 on the year, taking their talents down to play the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. So you got Tigers against Wildcats. This is the home opener for Bethune-Cookman. This game's at 3 p.m. Eastern. It'll be seen on the Griot. This is the first time these teams have ever faced each other. Now, Bethune-Cookman's had a really, really rough road to get started. Really rough road. They've played FIU. They played the U. And last week, they played at South Carolina State. They've given up a lot of points, and they haven't really scored a lot of points. They hadn't until last week in the fourth quarter. They were down 41-13 entering the fourth quarter, and then the Cam Ransom show took over. Cam Ransom, who has said this week he will be the starting quarterback. Okay? It's already been determined that he will be the starting quarterback. That's what Coach Woody said when I asked him on Monday during the coaching call. And quite frankly, he's the guy who should have been your quarterback all along. He was your guy last year. He needed to be your guy. He's the one that moves the offense better. He threw for over 300 yards last week, 4 touchdowns in the air, and he ran for another 2 himself. Edward Waters comes into this thing hot, y'all. Last week, they knocked off a D2-ranked Virginia Union team at home, kicked a field goal on the last play. Coach Jenkins, Brian Jenkins Sr., that is former head coach Brian Jenkins Sr. of Bethune-Cookman, led them to a couple playoff appearances, conference titles, and stuff like that. He took over when their head coach left and joined the Toriano Morgan was the head coach. He left and he joined the Tennessee State squad. So now Brian Jenkins is leading it. And like Miss Mack eloquently put out there, Coach Dooley, that's Eric Dooley, he's the offensive coordinator. And they have had that offense humming. They've been scoring 30, 40 points every week. Okay. Now, this game, Edward Waters is still a little undersized. However, they got speed. and it's deceptive. And yeah, he said, wow, how is this their first meeting? Well, one thing is these guys were NAIA for a long while, right? And they just moved up to D2 2 years ago and joined the SIAC. So that's how. So these guys have deceptive speed. Now, Bethune-Cookman, their Achilles heel is, man, these dudes, they just can't play defense right now. And yeah, I like this one too. Noah Bodden, former Grambling and Southern quarterback, is leading the charge down there for Edward Waters. And he's been looking dead-gum good, been spinning it, right? So Bethune-Cookman's been struggling on defense. They haven't been able to stop the run, and they've been getting torched in the air, okay? FIU in week 1 ran for 6 rushing touchdowns on them, okay? Last week, South Carolina State, they did whatever they wanted to do, plus they also took advantage of some turnovers, okay? I'm inspired by how Bethune-Cookman played in that fourth quarter because people can say that South Carolina State took their foot off the gas. You can say whatever you want. The guys still had to go out there and make plays they did. So this game right here, you better be careful, Bethune. You better be real careful because you can definitely lose this game. And if you lose this game, well, Coach Woody, you already been considered to be on the hot seat. Quite frankly, the way Coach has been getting fired so far after losing 3 games, Deshaun Foster, UCLA, Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, guys are getting let go. If you lose this game, you could be looking at a new head coach next week and starting the SWAC opener. Or you say, well, the farewell tour has officially been confirmed. But I think Bethune-Cookman would dig deep with Cam Ransom and Malik Huggins, his wide receiver. I gotta say, 35-31 in an escape, a shootout. Yeah, I got it as a shootout because I don't think Bethune-Cookman can defend these boys. And I think that Cam Ransom is the answer for this week. And also, this game, actually, you can flip the score. It could be 35-31 either way. And I'm sure everybody watching right now, I'm sure you probably agree when I say it could be either way. You could flip the Tiger head up top and put the BC at the bottom. Doesn't make a difference. But I tell you like this, Bethune-Cookman, you better make sure you win this game because if you don't win this game, shoo, man. And yeah, Benny, I agree. You said they ain't as bad as everybody. But listen, man. Defensively, they are a mess. And that was their problem last year. They couldn't defend nothing last year, right? So offensively, yeah, they got some pieces. Defensively, but I think they'll get out of here with this. What's up, Whitley? He says SWAC team struggling with these D2 schools. You know what, though? These D2 schools coming with that passion. They coming with that fire. They're like, hey, we got nothing to lose. We're going to go out here and we're going to lay it all on the line. Hey, he said, U-Haul watch. Yep. I like this, man. He said, give me Bethune. This might set them in the right direction after that fourth quarter last week. Yeah, they definitely can't afford to lose this game. You're right, bro. You are right. You said exactly what I said. You're right. He said I need to play FanDuel. Hey, man, you know what, man? I analyze the heck out of this stuff, bro. I read, watch these videos. I do this stuff. He said, wow, Wayne, you are scaring folks. So did you thought I was going to go Edward Waters? But hey, I do have to tell y'all, though, last time Bethune-Cookman played a D2 out of the SIAC down there on that very field. Well, Clark Atlanta left out of there 37-35 last year. So, take care of business. All right, now we go to the Battle of the Real HU / Truth and Service Classic. This one's at Audi Field. They're in Washington, D.C. 4 p.m. Eastern. It is the HBCU Go game of the week. Shout out to HBCU Go, man. They got some things going. They do real good things, real good broadcasts. Last time they played last year in September. Hampton won this one 27-20. Now, both teams, they come in with an equal 2-1 record. Okay. Man, Hampton, what can I say about you boys? Yeah, last week you let one go at North Carolina A&T in your CAA opener. That was a game they had no business losing. They were up 20-10 with a minute and 40 seconds to go, and they let their foot off the gas, and then it went to 2 overtimes, and you know what else happened. Howard, they're coming feeling good about themselves. Hampton does have 2 losses. You're right. It's the other way. 1-2. Yep. Thank you. So forgive me, y'all. It should be 1-2. Should be 1-2. Hampton lost to Jackson State, and they lost last week to North Carolina A&T. Thank you. So it's 1-2. Hampton let that go. Howard feeling good about themselves though. They went there to East Rutherford. They took care of business against Morehouse. They should have. Okay. So here's a few notes here. This rivalry, it dates itself back to 1908, man. These boys been playing a long time. Hampton leads the series by a very comfortable margin. You see, they got a 14 game to the good win percentage. Last 10 meetings, Hampton, it's been 6-4. All right. This game, man, I spent a lot of time trying to figure this one out because I've been trying to figure out, is Hampton the team? Is Hampton really the team that we saw punch against Jackson State for 4 quarters? And then really, or are they the team that sleptwalked through a game against Elizabeth City State in their 1 win and then had the game in hand last week against North Carolina A&T? So, Isaiah Freeman playing really, really good, at quarterback. But defensively, they've got some guys on defense, but they've been giving up a few things a little too extra. And the thing that's crazy, out of their 3 games, they haven't really been giving up a whole lot of points. Gave 28, then it was 20, and then last week it was 33, but that was in double overtime. They had only given up 10 through 50 minutes of that game. So defensively, they've been playing good. Now, Howard has been a little bit of a struggle a little bit. That's just being polite. There's been a lot of a struggle on offense. Now, yes, they won the game week 1 against FAMU. They only scored 10 points when they did it. Week 2 got a payment game. They only scored 7 points when they played Temple. Last week, it was 38-10, but it was against Morehouse. Morehouse is just not on their level, okay? So I'm just trying to figure out which team is which. Is Howard going to break out of their offensive funk this week? And is Hampton really the team that showed you the promise in week number 1 that it could potentially be a better season for them in the CAA? Those are all the questions. All right. Wild Wayne is going to go 24-21. I'm picking Hampton in this one. I think that Hampton, they learned some lessons this week about finishing games. And they know they had to hear it all week, had to watch the film, probably had their local media, people telling them about how bad they were to finish the game. And I think they're going to be motivated and pumped up to try to get this done. Now, don't be surprised, though, if this goes the opposite way, because Howard head coach Larry Scott said, listen, we've won the MEAC since I've been here. They have. He said, we've done a lot of things. He said, but one thing we have not done is we have not beaten Hampton. And he's right. So he said, deep sigh, go Pirates. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I got Hampton winning this game. But I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a 4-quarter game, as it is in these rivalries, man. So Battle of the Real HU going to Hampton according to Wild Wayne. All right, and then the last one we got on the ledger to talk about this week is the Aggie Eagle Classic. And oh man, my graphics have been wrong this week, y'all. 1-2. 1-2. 1-2 is North Carolina A&T. North Carolina Central is 2-2. That's correct. Apologies. 1-2 North Carolina A&T. They got their win late last week. Okay. So this game, Truist Stadium. This will be on Flow Sports, 4 p.m. Eastern, Last time they played, North Carolina Central 66-24. Okay. So this rivalry, it goes back to 1922. A&T has led this series, and they'll be in the lead for quite a while. But last 10 meetings, you've seen North Carolina Central, they lead 6-4. Now, a lot of this was, you remember North Carolina A&T had their golden era when they had Rob Broadway and they were dominating that thing, and they had they had a lot of stuff working right for these boys. They were winning those HBCU national titles. You had Mr. Bring Me My Money coaching them. They had some really great things happening. And this rivalry was a little bit lopsided during then. But since then, North Carolina Central's been taking the upper hand. Okay. Last year, 66 points that they put on North Carolina A&T. So the Aggies, they're feeling good about themselves after a comeback win. And Coach Sean Gibbs, he's feeling good about himself too. If you didn't see the video, he had a lot to say about Hampton's head coach. And, he was just really excited. And he should be excited because you got your first win. For a team that only won one game each of the last 2 years, you're on the board early. Okay. Now he's facing his good friend and buddy, Trey Oliver. And Trey Oliver, he was on his best behavior during the coach's call this week. He would not take the bait when people asked him about how he feels about his boy, Sean Gibbs. He said, this game has nothing to do with neither him nor I. It's about the players on the field. It sounded good, but now tell us how you really feel behind closed doors, Coach Oliver. I got to believe that North Carolina A&T, they feel like they're disrespected. They feel like they need to earn their respect. People are saying that they're going to blow us out in our stadium, that these Eagles are going to come to Greensboro and spank us. Well, I don't think they're going to spank you, but you're going to lose. I'm going 35-19, and I believe it could be even bigger than this, because the questions that I have is, you still are down to 6th or 6th. You had your 7th guy play quarterback last week, talking about North Carolina A&T. And Walker Harris is starting to get his groove back a little bit. He had a couple struggle games, but last week he threw for 387, starting to get his groove back. Now, I expect it to be loud. It'd be a nice crowd down there. But in the end, it's going to be Central. Going to be Central getting this win. And Central's going to get ready to set themselves up as they prepare to take the next run. Okay. So, before I show the ledger that I have of how I did last week, let me take a pause and I'll show something that's pretty hilarious. Make sure everybody hit the like button. So this week on the coach's call, I'm kind of loving to pull some of these funny moments. But if you didn't see this during the coach's call, head coach of Texas Southern, Chris Dishman, he's a little bit testy this week. And you know what? Being 0-3, that'll kind of do it to you. So this is what he had to say when he got, you'll see it, y'all. Here we go.
Next question goes to Perry Daniels.
Good morning, Coach.
Mr. Daniels?
Coach, help me comprehend the statement that this isn't what you signed up for. I don't quite grasp the meaning of that.
Well, Mr. Daniels, let me take it very slow. Okay? When coaches sign up to take a job, I signed up to take this job. I didn't sign up to take a job where our guys or our coaches or even me decided not to go out there and play good football. That's what I was talking about. I wasn't talking about anyone else but myself. So now you got it, right?
I believe so. To follow up on that, though, you and other former professionals that have decided to take on HBCU programs have had a tremendous impact on the culture. And Isn't that exactly what you signed up for?
All right, let me say this again, okay? And I'm trying not to be rude to you.
I appreciate that.
You asked me the same question 2 or 3 times. So let me say this again.
Yes,
all right?
sir.
I sign up for one. My job title is head coach. I have to get our players to play each and every game. I also got to get our players to go study hall. I also have to get our players to graduate. My main focus this year is to get 1,000 APR points. That's my main focus. My main focus this year is to win the West and win the SWAC. Those are my goals. Those are our team goals. Our captains of our teams and our seniors of our team has signed off on those goals. So that's what we're fighting to do. Our preseason is over. Now it's time to get down to business.
I appreciate.
Man. Oh, man. That was hilarious, man. Yeah. He said he's always testy. Dishman don't be having time for the bull junk. I said, this was pissy. Yeah. This man, listen, man. Hey, shout out to my boy Perry Daniels, man. He does a great job. But Perry had asked that boy, he said, listen, man. He said, clarify this for us, man. What exactly do you mean by this is and what we're referring to, what we were referring to was Chris Dishman said after they lost their game this past weekend against Lamar, he talked about how it was a disgusting performance by his team. He talked about how bad they were. They had 2 punts blocked return for a touchdown. And then he also talked a little bit about how, he's saying like, I got to do better as a coach. We got to do better as a staff. We got to get our staff together. He said, we got to figure out which guys want to be here. He even got so testy where he was even talking about, we got guys that are not doing their jobs and they're not going to play. So he really was really down and dirty and just telling folks, look, we're not playing up to what we expected. And here's what they got. Yeah, they're 0-3 and they're already 0-1 in SWAC play. Right? So next week, they get started at Valley. But even with that, Valley's on a bye week just like you are. And guess what? Coach Buckley, if you go and look at the same video, the same thing, it's here on YouTube, look at the same conference, all right? Now, he wasn't as demonstrative as Coach Dishman was, but he even said, he's like the same stuff. We're trying to figure out who's going to get on the bus and who needs to get off the bus. Like, they're also 0-3 trying to figure it out. So, when I come before you next week to talk about those 2 teams getting together in Itabena, somebody's not going to be happy because somebody going to leave 0-4. But if you look at where they are, though, if you trying to get it together, yeah, you better start quick. Look at what you got after that homecoming, boy. Man, that's tough. But he's got, he demands a lot. He demands a lot of himself. Speaking about Chris Dishman, so he said Chris got feisty. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too, man. I thought it was great. But yeah, so Texas Southern, yeah, they need to get going, and he's right. They haven't played up to maybe what they expected. Now the Lamar game, it wasn't so much that they lost the game; it's how they looked, man. They looked uninspired. They didn't really get anything going, and like I said, they had 2 punts blocked for a touchdown. That's ugly. And he said a lot of it was, it was just poor technique and blocking. So, and then, that game, I believe he still got the hangover from that first game because, that first game, he ran his mouth a lot. Let's just make it very plain. All right. So, yeah. So now, let's show you a little bit about what I did last week. Man, doggone you, Hampton. Hampton, doggone you. Messed up my perfect week. Would have been 18-0. But Hampton, you let it go late. So instead, Wild Wayne went 17-1, and 2 of my games that I picked, I had the exact correct score. Exactly as I said it would be. I had the exact score in 2 games. Crazy. But just call it luck. But my season record of picks is a very respectable 46-7. Now tougher games are ahead because SWAC play starts next week, and these money games are gonna go away. Some of these straightforward, lopsided ones, they're gonna go away. So the games are gonna get a little bit tougher to pick, and it's gonna require even more of a fine-tooth comb to look and see what these teams are, right? So here's Wild Wayne's winners this week. I said, I've got Bethune-Cookman. I took a deep breath, went Bethune-Cookman. Whoo. We got South Florida taking out South Carolina State. Took a deep breath with Norfolk State. Real deep breath. Real simple with Morgan State and Alabama A&M, and then took another deep breath with Grambling. And then I was almost out of breath with Prairie View against Northwestern State, even though I think they'll take care of business. And then the real toss-up this week, the 2 toss-ups I have this week, I've got Bethune-Cookman, the toss-up, and then also Hampton over Howard in the Battle of the Real HU. Those are the 2 toss-ups for me, the biggest ones. And then, of course, I got Delaware State keeping their momentum, and then I've got Eagles over the Aggies. So those are my week 4 winners, okay? Those are my week 4 winners. So now we've come to the point of the show where I want some of you that are out here watching, holla at me, okay? Holla at me. So if you got questions, you got your comments, anything you want to say, make sure you holla at me. And also make sure you hit the like button. Love the stream. And also, if you're watching and you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to your boy, man. Big stuff happening here. Okay. So you said, can I post the scores again? Sure. I will go right back through it again. I will do that just for you. All right. Here we go. 35-14 is where I'm going with South Florida over South Carolina State. I've got Morgan State 35-3 over Central State. I've got Alabama A&M 42-14 over Lane Dragons. I've got Norfolk State 20-17 over Sacred Heart. Close. Then for Grambling, I've got Grambling eking one out again, 31-28 over East Texas A&M. I've got Delaware State 31-24 over St. Francis Red Flash. Then I've got Prairie View 34-24 over Northwestern State. I've got Bethune-Cookman getting out 35-31 over Edward Waters. I've got Hampton 24-21 over Howard. And then lastly, I've got 35-19 North Carolina Central Eagles over the Aggies of North Carolina A&T. Those are the scores, and these are the picks, right? All right. So as you feel free to holler at me, ask any questions, make any comments. One thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna just kind of scroll, and we'll talk about some of the teams here that are on a bye week, right? He said, Wayne, you dropping at least 6 games so far with these scores. Man, you seen my record so far, bruh? Nah. All right. So Jackson State on a bye week. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of these teams here in the SWAC, and I'll move it on forward as we go forward. Okay, now Sunday night I talked about teams that were at the quarter pole. the quarter pole of the season, we played 3 games out of 12 for mostly everybody. Okay. And then, of course, if you're the case of North Carolina Central and Southern, you played 4 games. All right. So Jackson State, where they sit right now, next week, ooh, it's a doozy. I love it, man. I'm going to love going through that game next week and telling you about it when they get ready to go down to the Bluff and play Southern Jaguars. Now, the thing about these boys is where it's at. And I'm going to say it like this, and I'm going to say it real plain about Jackson State. You look at the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games, okay? I'll say it very plainly. If they win those next 5 games, forget about it. They win these next 5 games, you can forget about it. You can forget about it. Whoever win in the West, just make your plans to come right there to the vet. That's all I'm gonna say. They win these next 5, just make your plans to come to the vet in December. That's it. That's it. Because winning those 5 games, and then you figure they got Valley, Bethune-Cookman, and then, Alcorn. Yeah, we know about Alcorn being a rivalry, but I tell you, by the time you even play Alcorn, that thing will be wrapped up. If you win those first 5 games, I'm giving you the last 2, the next 2, the Valley and the Bethune-Cookman game. That'll put you at 7-0 in the league. So you win these next 5 games, you can forget about it. Just don't even worry if your team's in the West and they're competing to win the West. Just get yourselves prepared to go to Jackson, Mississippi, on December the 6th, because that's how it's gonna be. All right, that's just really what it's about. Because the reason why I say with these 5 games, because you look at the main contenders are right there. There are 3 contenders in the East, or the perceived contenders in the East are right there in front of them. Okay. So that's where it's at. Now, it ain't going to be very simple as you think it could be, because the thing that you look at, A&M's playing really good right now, and they're going to be hungry. Alabama State, you know how they're playing. Grambling, look, they got you last year because you turned the ball over, right? And then you turn around in a week, you make another trip out to go to Tallahassee. So where you guys sit, if you're a Jackson State fan, really, essentially, you're looking at those 5 games. So I'm just telling you, you win those 5 games right there, go ahead on and get ready for December 6th there in the vet. It's just that simple, right? But we got to play the games. And I'm going to talk about it as we get to it, okay? Now, Florida A&M. I'm going to just break this one down real simple for these boys, okay? Last week, they got in the win column. It wasn't pretty, but they got in the win column. Now they got a bye week to go over and try and fix that offense. R.J. Johnson, he looked really good in that second half last week. Having Jet Petty play some in that first half gave him a different perspective. They thrived in the RPO game. Now, remember, they were down 14-10 at half last week. And then they woke up and got it going in the second half. Now, this next game against Alabama State that we'll talk about next week, this is really going to tell you the story about who they potentially could be. Okay? Because if they go out here and they stink up the joint against Alabama State, with the rest of the schedule that they got coming, they got the Valley game in Atlanta. Then you got North Carolina Central, that's non-conference. But then when they get back in the conference, you look at Alcorn, at Southern, Jackson State, and they still got to go to Huntsville. Okay, so really, I'm looking at this for these guys for confidence-wise. It's really a 1-game season right now. You come out of that bye, you got to get that game against Alabama State if you're looking to do anything. You lose that game against Alabama State and you get smoked at home by Alabama State, you think the rumblings have been rumbling now. You thought they were rumbling on August 31st after you lost that Howard game. Go out there on next week and get smoked at home and stink up the joint against Alabama State. You already know what it is. So, yeah, like he said, it's on the line against Alabama State. Need to win the game. Need to win the game. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Okay? Valley, listen. I really believe that Valley is still going to pop somebody. And I ain't talking about Lincoln, California. That's a definite that they're going to win that game. But I got to believe that they're going to pop somebody. And I'll tell you right now, if you're Texas Southern coming to it have been the next week, the way Texas Southern looked against Lamar last week. Now, Texas Southern really are the better team, but hey, he comes short. And especially with Mississippi Valley coming off of a bye week, just like you. They had a chance to talk about y'all, talk about the players, the same way you had a chance to talk about your players. And also, Florida A&M, remember they beat them last year down there in Bragg. If Florida A&M stinks up the joint against Alabama State and they got to come to Atlanta, man, maybe they come to Atlanta not focused. So you never know. But for Valley, this is about building for the future. You got to figure some things out because these last two games, boy. Now, the Tarleton State game, I don't blame you for that. Tarleton State, man, they built different. That's a top 3 team in the FCS, man. They are powered. But last week, that was a real downer the way they played last week. They didn't even compete. So after this bye week, Valley, we need to see a little something. So show a little bit more fight, just like you did in that first game. All right. Now, Alabama State, here's the team right here. These boys got some really good opportunities in front of them. Offensively, they're looking really, really good right now. Andrew Body has been doing it in the air, and he's done it, opportunistically on the ground. Now, where these boys got to get it together, they got to get it together with discipline. They've been committing a lot of penalties, and they need to do some things with their defense a little bit more, right? They got to carry the last 2 games forward on defense. So when they get down there to Tallahassee next week, it's a big one. They win that game, then hey, they're set on that path because you got Bethune-Cookman coming, and then you got a big one down there in Jackson. And then you get a bye week, and then you got another big one, right? So you get that one against Florida A&M, then you look, after that homecoming, you got 3 really good opponents in a row. 2 road and 1 neutral. So, really, Alabama State, they're in a good spot. They look good, but they got to carry it over now in Tallahassee. We'll see. Bethune-Cookman, just get a win this week, man. That's all I'm going to say. Just get a win this week, y'all. You lose this game this week, oh boy. It could be even longer. Now we go to Southern. He said Southern is 3-18 against SWAC opponents with a winning record. You are absolutely right. Absolutely right. Southern has looked real bad so far. They've had some quarterback issues. Obviously, Jalen Woods having a concussion against Valley. They hadn't been able to stop the run. They've had some turnover problems. Been fumbling that thing a lot. Mike Franklin's fumbled it. Trey Holly's fumbled it. Cam McCoy's fumbled it. So they've got a lot of turnover problems that they better have gotten fixed over this bye week. And when they get ready to start practicing for this game next week against Jackson State. Now, to their credit, and I'll say this next week, they've lost 6 straight times to Jackson State. 2 of those times when down there in Baton Rouge, and those have been a little bit more competitive down there in Baton Rouge. So the other wild card is, what is the offense going to look like when you come out this bye? Because now you will have had 2 full weeks to practice with Coach McNair calling the plays and setting up the system. So we'll see how it goes. But these guys, if they lose the game against Jackson State, it's not eliminating them from the West or nothing like that, because they could still win the rest of the games and still win the division. Okay. So next week is not the make or break game for their season, but psychologically, it can do a whole lot for them if they play well. Like if they don't win the game, but play well, psychologically, it can do a lot for them. But let all the Southern Jaguar fans go. Let them tell it, including Crook and all you out here. You know how it is. Y'all know how you feel. You know you need to win. He said, "Don't let them get better anytime soon." He said, "How many fumbles have come from McCoy?" Yeah. So, Cam's fumbled 3 times, and he's thrown each of the interceptions you guys have had. Yeah. You guys been turning that ball over way too much, bro. Way too much. You got the most turnovers of any team in the SWAC. Facts. More turnovers. I think you turned the ball over 7 times. 8 times. 8 times in 3 games. 8 times. That's 8 times in 4 games. Sorry, 8 times in 4 games. That's still way too many. All right. So they're the second half of their schedule. You know, you got Prairie View, FAMU. So the opportunity that they have, they play a lot of their tougher games at home. So just got to get it together. We'll see what it's like. We'll talk about that game next week. Alcorn. So Alcorn sitting at 0-3. Now, we all thought that around this time, many people thought, including me, because yes, preseason, I had them beating my Alabama A&M Bulldogs. I thought that they would have been 2-1. But they lost that game against Northwestern State. And then they played really well on offense against Alabama A&M. Defensively, wasn't there. Last week, just flat out, just wasn't there. You were going to lose the game anyway at Mississippi State, but they just didn't compete. So now this bye week, now they got a crucial one as they hit the Southern Heritage Classic next week down there in Memphis. It's crucial. And listen, Alcorn, to me, they're a talented team. They're a talented group. Jalen Tolbert has done well for them at quarterback. He's an upgrade. Their running game is pretty good with Sewell. You know, they're really good with their running backs. Okay. Their receiving core has done better. Offensive line has done better. Where they've been at, though, is just playing a little bit of better defense and also taking care of the football. Okay. These guys, they get a win down there in Memphis. I think it could set these boys on a path because they still got a lot of talent down there. The question now is what can you do with it? And also, what can you do with the games that are afforded to you? You got guys coming to your house. You got Prairie View coming to you. You got Southern coming to you. You got Grambling coming to you. Okay? You've got some good opportunities for you to make some headway there in the West Alcorn State Braves. But you got to start putting it together and showing it next week down there in Memphis. All right? So I expect these boys still to contend. Yes, I do. I don't care that they're 0-3. I think that if they come out after this bye week and they turn it around and play a great game and really do well down there in Memphis, it'll change the eye level and change the thinking about these boys. Okay? That's Alcorn. Grambling. Now, these boys are 2-1. This one's not. I didn't update the 2-1. I got the win against Kentucky State, though. I could have that up there. Now, Grambling sitting at 2-1. I already talked to you about their game this week. This is a game that psychologically it's good for them to get a win, but they need to just play well, man. They don't need to have a close one where they're like slogging through this game, okay? They just need to go out here and take care of business. Because next week, you're going down there to play Prairie View in that State Fair Classic. And it's going to be tough, right? It's going to be tough. But the question is that all of us are really trying to figure out is what kind of team is Grambling trying to be? Who are they? And unfortunately, we're not going to really know that probably until we see them play next week. Okay? But they've got opportunities. ZT said he's been pretty good at quarterback. He'd say it's an upgrade. He's played really well. He's been running it. He's been throwing. But the thing that they got to do, they got to be able to run the ball with more than just ZT set. And also, they need to be more, opportunistic on defense beyond just getting calls. And yeah, he said their demise will be from the pre-SWAC schedule. Yeah, they didn't really play nobody, man. Langston and Kentucky State. Yeah. We're going to find out, though. We're going to find out, Dave. We're going to find out about them a lot. We're going to find out in short order when they get down to Dallas next week. They got some talent, but we need to see it. We need to see what they can do. And then you got Prairie View. So, squeaked it out of there in week 1. Eased on out of there in week 1. Okay. Played a horrible first half in week 2 and started to get themselves together when it was too late. Last week left some meat on the bone against Rice. Tevin Carter, he's played pretty much a lot the last game and a half, and Cam Peters led the way in week 1 at quarterback. So we'll figure out who's the guy. Maybe you get your answer this week against Northwestern State. Maybe you figure it out next week when they play Grambling. But you look at that schedule, as I said earlier, 5 of the next 6 after this week defines the season for Prairie View. That is a tough road to hoe. Tough road, man. Tough. And so all the things that Tremaine Jackson says that he's been building with that group, you definitely gonna have the opportunity to prove who you are after Northwestern State this week. Because Grambling, neutral, at Alcorn, then you get a bye. I remember when I talked to Coach Jackson in SWAC Media Day, he said we get a bye at the most opportune time. So can you imagine if they win this week and they win the next 2 and they go to their bye week sitting at 3-0 in SWAC play before they go to Southern for Southern's homecoming? Could you imagine that? How much better they'll feel about themselves? And it's just something. He said, the receipts will come out. I love it. I love these comments, man. Y'all keep them coming. So you look at these guys, man, 1-0 already in the SWAC. I say the same thing about them as I say about Alcorn. These boys have opportunities. They've got some talent. But we need to see it, man. We need to see the consistency. We haven't really seen it yet because they were very fortunate in game 1. Okay, UAPB, you got your win last week. You're going to get another one on your homecoming game on October 11th. Question is, can you get somebody else? Maybe you can get Bethune-Cookman down there for their homecoming. Maybe you can get them. The thing about this team, they're getting a few pieces coming back. BJ Kane, their running back, BJ Kane. Well, BJ, their running back. He's been injured. He's coming back. Jennings, the other running back they have, he just rushed for 226 last week and 4 touchdowns in that win. Cam Peters, he's been Christian Peters. They got so many Peters. Christian Peters, their quarterback. He's been pretty good for them. He's an upgrade a little bit in terms of, just his poise. But their problem is they've been undersized on both of their lines for quite a while. They're going to fight. They're going to do some things. They're going to probably scare somebody because, Prairie View, they're good for pushing somebody, right? Last year, they beat Prairie View. Okay, so, they're good to get somebody. They won 3 games last year. So I think that they got a chance to maybe get somebody else. We'll see. But I don't know if Alonzo Hampton's going to have any more time after this year. I really like Alonzo Hampton. Big fan of his work. I think he has a great attitude. He's gotten some players there, just haven't been able to keep them on campus, man. But, just keep fighting, brother. Then we talked about Texas Southern earlier. Big thing for them, they just need to get one win. You need to win a game against Mississippi Valley. You need to win that game. You win that game, then you can kind of start, putting some things, maybe putting a foot forward. They got some players. KJ Cooper's pretty solid at quarterback, but they just been inconsistent so far. That first game really damaged them because that was a game they should have won. And it's going to stick with them the rest of the way, but, as far as looking on the schedule. But you can't do anything about it now. You just got to move forward. Hopefully for them, they come out the bye week with a fresh new attitude, and we'll see what works. Okay? So that's the SWAC. And then a little bit of the MEAC. North Carolina Central, they're right where I thought they would be. I had them finishing 10-2. They are 2-2. And they're at the point of the schedule where I said they win all the rest of their games. I said they lose to New Hampshire. I said they'd lose to Old Dominion in my preseason picks. I know in week 2 of this show, I picked them to beat New Hampshire, and they lost New Hampshire. But I had them 10-2 overall, and I had them winning all the rest of their games. Now, this week, they'll get one, I believe. And then next week, they're going to go down and play East Texas A&M in a really interesting matchup for them. They get that one. They get a much-needed bye week. And then they go down and they play an old MEAC foe in Florida A&M non-conference, and then they start the gauntlet. For these boys, it's about the Final Five. Straight up, it's about the Final Five. And they are the better team. They are the better team, talent-wise and experience-wise in the MEAC. Although this team right here is starting to come on strong. The South Carolina State Bulldogs have been playing some good ball, okay? Defensively, except for the fourth quarter last week, these guys have been playing really, really good ball. Chennis Berry has got these guys playing with an edge, and they're being really, really opportunistic on defense as well in terms of forcing turnovers. These guys, week 1, did not allow Wofford to even get to the red zone, okay? They gave what was a then 10th ranked South Carolina fits for 3 quarters. Okay. And then last week it was 41-13 going into the fourth quarter against Bethune-Cookman. Now, South Florida, just play well this week. It's a money game. Do what you can do. Next week is a very winnable game at Charleston Southern. They're probably the lowest rated team in the Big South OVC. That's an in-state game. You can win that one. You got your homecoming game against Savannah State. That's another one you should win. You should dominate. And then you go to face North Carolina A&T for the G-Ho. And then again, just like North Carolina Central, it's about the Final Five. And also that game, it's actually November 14th. I had to change that. They changed the date. It's November 14th, Friday at North Carolina Central. But the Final Five, again, just like North Carolina Central, it's the same thing for South Carolina State. And I expect everything to go right down to that next to last game between those two as to who's going to get to the Celebration Bowl. And then Morgan State, as I said earlier in the show, after that stinker they put up last week in Toledo, you've got 4 winnable games before you start the MEAC gauntlet. You got Central State and Miles out of the SIAC. Take care of business. Go to Georgetown. That's another winnable game, and you're getting that one over Virginia Lynchburg. If you can go to starting at Howard 4-3 with Eric Hunter, who's probably right now, according to my boy Blue, he said that the preseason rankings for draftable HBCU prospects, they said he's the number 1 draft prospect of HBCU players. He's a linebacker. He's no joke. You get Jason Collins, the running back, going. Kobe Masao, the quarterback. You guys get going. They have pieces. They should have won that game against Towson. These guys can have a chance to maybe be a spoiler or a borderline sleeper, right? But they got to get it going. Win some games. We'll see you. Norfolk State, this is about Michael Vick and his crew getting it together as a staff, right? And also getting that run game together. They've not been able to really run the ball so far. Also, defensively, they've had some breakdowns. Now, last week against Rutgers, they were supposed to lose that game. Rutgers did some things. They tried some things, and then they blew them out in the second half. Okay. This game against Sacred Heart and the next one against Wagner, these are 2 winnable games. Okay. You take care of your business against these 2, then you go to Hampton and you get Wofford on the road before you start the run. If you can win these next 4, you be 5-2 when you start MEAC play. Now we got something to see. Okay. And you got South Carolina State coming to your house, which is a huge opportunity. Okay. And we'll see how that goes. Howard Bison, for you guys, you just need to win another one this week. You guys have been, you guys haven't really broken out with offense, but maybe that's just who you are. Not a whole lot was expected from these boys. They pulled off a shocker in week 1, and they won the game that they were expected to win last week. Can you win a game against Hampton, a team that you have not beaten in quite a while? Next week, Richmond, that's going to be a test. Sacred Heart, that's possibly winnable. Tennessee State, for Tennessee State's homecoming, that's possibly winnable for you as well. But for this team, this is about, take what you can get, right? Take what you can get, but try to get your offense going because we haven't seen it yet if you got something. And then Delaware State, man, these boys right here, I like the look. Coach Jackson has the look. He's got the confidence, and he's really holding these guys accountable, and you can tell the vibes are just good. You can tell the vibes and the feeling and the flow is just good with that group. Caden Bennett has been doing things at quarterback. Transferred from Sacramento State Hornets to the Delaware State Hornets and has not missed a beat. Okay. Now they play St. Francis and then Sacred Heart and Monmouth, and then they get their homecoming game. I expect them to win 3 of the next 4. The Monmouth game might be a little bit of a stretch for them. Monmouth is a pretty doggone good team. Okay. They win the next 3 of the next 4. They could be looking at 5-2 going to North Carolina Central for that SWAC opener. So you think about if these boys want to try to get in the mix and throw their hat in the ring to potentially be a spoiler or be an outsider to try to get into that MEAC title hunt, these boys, they got to get their work done over the next 3 to 4 weeks here. Develop more of that mojo and come into that MEAC play playing great. Okay. And then last but not least, I do have got the other teams that I cover. North Carolina A&T Aggies, they got their first win last week over Hampton. Doesn't matter how you got it, you got it. Now it gets tough. That game this week, we already talked about it. Maine is winless, but that's a long road trip against a team that's, that's probably, might be a little bit better than you. We'll see. We'll talk about it next week. William and Mary's a tough one. And then you already know about South Carolina State. Campbell, to me, is probably the next winnable game that they have on their schedule. Okay. Towson, we've seen them twice. We've seen what they've got. Stony Brook is way out there. Monmouth, way out there. Elon is way out there. Honestly, if we're being realistic, really these guys can probably get maybe one more game, and maybe if they catch Maine next week. But for a team, including me, who thought that they wouldn't win a game this year, if they can somehow get to 2 wins and look good and maybe some of the others, hey, I'm okay with that. Hampton, this one's a disappointment here because after week 1, the way they played in week 1, the way they looked, they competed, they played well against Jackson State. They came out and stunk it up against Elizabeth City State in a game they should have pounded somebody. That was a 4-quarter game, and they needed to win that game late, had to rally back from a double-digit deficit. That game last week is what it is. Now, can you do something this week? Can you beat Howard again and get yourself right? Elon, we'll talk about that next week. Norfolk State, that's a winnable game because it's at home. Campbell, I just talked about them. But then you got teams like Villanova, no. Monmouth, no. Maine, maybe. William and Mary, no. And at Rhode Island. So really, these guys could possibly be looking at 5 wins. Okay. And I said that they would probably win 5 games because they were 5-7 last year. And if I go back and I pull up MEAC Mike, he said, one more game is not a stretch. Right. That game against Campbell. That's the one I'm really looking at as a game that they really should get. Okay. And then last but not least, with Tennessee State, they're on a bye week this week, and they get to stay at home next week. Now, they eked out that game first week against North Carolina A&T. North Dakota State, we knew what that was. That's the number one team in FCS. I mean, I keep telling y'all that's a group of 5 team right there. For real. I think they'd be a bowl team if they played in a group of 5 conference. Talking about North Dakota State. Last week, it was a 4-quarter game, and them got them. One thing about these boys, McNair, their quarterback, man, that guy looked pretty good. Kendrick Grimes still got it at running back. Okay. They got some pieces, but next week, Tennessee Tech, yeah, that team's built differently. They're the best team in the Big South OVC, and they're ranked. Realistically, I think that they maybe have 4 wins in them. Okay. But we'll see. Really, this is about try to build for the future with Reggie Barlow. And as I said before, you better get him now because he's going to build that team and build them into a winner. Okay. So those are all the teams. And last again, here are my week 4 winners. And I've really, really enjoyed just spending some time with everybody hanging out here in the lounge tonight here on the SWAC and MEAC predictions with bitter rivals colliding because you've got the Battle of the Real HU and then you got the Aggie Eagle Classic. And next week, oh boy, do we have a great show for you next week because next week we start SWAC play exclusively. Next week, we're talking about Alabama State at FAMU. We're talking about Jackson State going down there to play Southern. We're talking about the State Fair Classic. Grambling, Prairie View. You're talking about Southern Heritage Classic. Got Alcorn taking on Pine Bluff. Then we got our MEAC games, and we got Tennessee State playing, and we got Hampton and North Carolina A&T also in action. So a lot of games next week. Yes, I know here in the SWAC, there's 8 teams that are on a bye week. But take this opportunity, man. Watch you some good football nevertheless. Check out these MEAC games. Watch those 2 rivalry games, man. North Carolina A&T and North Carolina Central is going to be on Flow Sports. So you can look that up. It'll be on YouTube. You can find it somewhere. And then HBCU Go is where you can watch the Battle of the Real HU. And, of course, you still have your 4 SWAC games. Those will be on SWAC TV. And then the Bethune-Cookman and Edward Waters will be on the grill. Y'all, make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell folks about my show, man. I'll be back with you on Sunday evening coming up as we recap week number 4. And then I'll set you up for week number 5. I'll go through the schedule, the networks, all that great stuff. And then right back here next Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for week number 5 of SWAC and MEAC predictions. And that show will be called Collision on the Bluff. I'm looking to see about who I'm going to get as a guest for next week. We'll get some more dialogue going. But yeah, man, I appreciate everybody. Share this show. Tell folks about it. Tell folks about the show. And also, you see my socials. You see everything where you can find me. If you want to connect with me on Facebook, you want to connect with me on Instagram, X, follow me. I'm here. Y'all know me, man. Wild Wayne Cartwright. It's the ride. I love y'all. God bless you. We'll see you Sunday. Have a great week and a great weekend.
Thank you for joining us on The Ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright. As you exit the ride, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the like button, and catch up on all of our prior episodes. Until next time, God bless.